One of the most beloved aircraft in War Thunder is the F-14, and in this video we're going to be going over a recent leak list that had the F-14D, which is the upgraded air-quote Supertomcat, that has been leaked to come to War Thunder as a pack premium. Before we dive into the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribed. Only about 8.7% of my current viewers are subscribed. It helps the channel out a lot, and even if this is the first time you've watched a video of mine, trust me, it really does support the channel and means the world to me. So the F-14D is the upgraded F-14 Tomcat. It was the last Tomcat that saw service with the United States Navy. The upgrades it had was mostly the engine upgrade, which it went to the F-110 GE 400 engine, the radar, which was the AN APG-71, the cockpit, which went into a digital avionics instead of the analog, and then the hybrid that the F-14B had, and then the actual airframe, which became lighter and was much more durable compared to the standard and reinforced airframes that the F-14A and F-14B had. And then also, as far as munitions, this is where it gets a little more interesting. So obviously the F-14D would arrive with the AIM-9M. That is pretty much a guarantee. The issue I have with that is technically all of the F-14 should have the AIM-9M. In fact, every time there's an argument that the F-14A never received the 9M, the only air-to-air kill the F-14A had during the Iraq War was against the helicopter with an AIM-9M. So keep that in mind. But for obviously the F-14D would guaranteeably have the 9M upon release. Now, the issue is, what other munitions could it have? So, obviously, you guys are probably familiar with the F-14D and the talks about the AMRAAM. The F-14, before it was decided to retire the platform in favor for the Super Hornet, it was undergoing the capability, or the mission capability, to receive the AIM-120. And it actually went as far as to having a testbed that carried the 120. The issue is the testbed actually was not an F-14D. Yes, it was an F-14 with the avionics upgrade that the F-14D had or was planned to get, but it was actually an F-14A. Now, personally, I think Gaijin will add the F-14D with the AIM-120 simply to give it a upgrade over the already existing platforms, because we actually already have 3 Tomcats in War Thunder, so a 4th one that only adds a better radar and the AIM-9M most likely wouldn't be that well received within the community. And then again, I could be wrong. Players do love to play the F-14, so it's very likely that players would be fine just receiving an upgraded radar variant. Personally, I would rather see it arrive with, at the bare minimum, 2 AIM-120s, and sit at maybe 0.3 higher than the F-14B, but with the upgrades it has. We'll obviously have to wait and see. Now, the other controversial thing that I have here to talk about is it coming as a pack premium. Now, obviously, we have had controversy with the Tomcats pretty much anytime they add a new one. The F-14A, super controversial. The F-14B was kind of the one that wasn't that issue-matic for the game, and then obviously the F-14A Iranian Tomcat that had the Falkurs still is an issue to Gaijin to this day. So it's very likely we end up seeing the F-14D being controversial in its own way, rather that it receives the AIM-120 or doesn't receive the AIM-120. Like I said, I personally do believe it should get it, just to give it a bit more of a gap between the already existing F-14B model, because end of the day, War Thunder doesn't have all of the air-quote upgrades that real life has. The major things with the F-14D in real life was the improved engine, which does have a big gap in War Thunder, but also the airframe, and the airframe and avionics doesn't really matter in War Thunder, at least not heavily as much as it would in real life. So I think anything that can give the F-14D a bigger gap would be better for the aircraft and for War Thunder itself. Now, on top of all of that, do I actually think it's going to come this update? Well, that's kind of and maybe not. The F-14D is an aircraft that players have asked for a very long time. It got accepted as a possible aircraft that was passed to the developers a while back. So it's not like Gaijin, is said that, no, we're not getting this aircraft. The leak list we have isn't by a reliable leaker. It did look very promising because we had things like the F-16AM for French, which we know the French are going to be receiving a top tier premium at some point, this update makes sense. We already had the ship that was on the leak list, and then we had things like the Chinese aircraft that we believe is what is on the multifunction display in the recent community post. So there is possibly some truth behind the leak list, but I wouldn't necessarily get your hopes up. The F-14D is one of those aircraft that Gaijin might just drop in the most random times, like the F-16C. It really just depends on what their plans are and what they've already decided for the year. Keep in mind, Gaijin already had a basic idea of what they were going to be adding this calendar year, back when they made the original dev post for the year. So back in like January or back in December, they do already know what they want to do with the game, so it's not likely we'll see much change from that. And if the F-14D was on that list, then great. The F-14D is one of those planes that if Gaijin ever has a moment where it's getting kind of stale for the United States in terms of aircraft, because they always like to be adding new aircraft for the US, the F-14D is a perfect platform to just flop in there. Is the F-14D that aircraft for this update? I'm not really sure. Anyways, like I said, please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.